Hello everybody, welcome back to the bright side of basketball with Logan. Today, we're going to be reacting to one of my favorite things in the world. That's right, another Bleacher Report article. Now, this one today is going to be regrading the NBA offseason's biggest trade so far by Grant Hughes. We're just going to give it a look. So first of all, we got Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic acquired Desmond Bane. The Memphis Grizzlies acquire KCP, Cole Anthony, a couple firsts, especially I think the most important one obviously being the 2026 first round swap between Phoenix and Washington. I think obviously that pick is worth quite a bit less now with how well Phoenix has been playing. So I don't mind them giving the Magic a B because realistically, obviously they gave up a lot of their own firsts, but a majority of those initial firsts that they gave up, specifically the Phoenix one, is not worth anywhere near as much as it was when they initially gave it up. So I really don't mind it. I'm not necessarily sure I would give the Grizzlies an A for it because of how much worse their team has gotten and because they aren't necessarily sticking with the idea of a rebuild. I think if they actually went ahead and moved on from Ja and moved on from Triple J, I think they would be in a lot better of a situation rather than where they are at now, where they're kind of just teetering. You know, they're a bad team, but they have a lot of good players. Well, good-ish players, obviously with the way Ja has been playing. So I wish we saw them move more into the direction of a full rebuild rather than just this kind of half rebuild we got them doing right now. It's quite similar to an issue I had with what the Bulls have been doing for a very long time, where they will trade a lot of their good players, not recoup anything of value, and still be bad and just still kind of just be, out of the play-in and just not making the playoffs. Overall, just the last thing you want for a team is for them to be stagnant, and the Grizzlies have definitely been very stagnant in these last couple of seasons. So next we got Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. I'm curious, I already saw it for a second, their grade they gave for the Suns, because I feel like they're going to really undervalue what the Suns got back, but we will get into that. So first of all, Houston Rockets, they require Kevin Durant, Clint Capella. I didn't necessarily know that he was a part of that trade. I just assumed, I guess somehow, some way, he was managed to be a part of it as if it was a three-teamer. But so the Suns got Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 2025 first-round pick, which obviously became Kaman Maliwatch. And then they got 5 seconds, what became Rasheer Fleming and Kobe Brea. The three really good pickups, in my opinion. Obviously, we have to see how they develop over time, whether they're in the G League. Just in general, I feel like they have a lot of potential, and I just cannot wait to see them reach whatever that potential may be. So they gave the Rockets a B. I think that's fair-ish. I would probably give them close to an A. I would honestly give both teams an A. I see they give the Suns a B-. That I completely disagree with, just based alone on the way Dylan Brooks has completely changed the culture of the Suns and how good the Suns have been playing. Obviously, my last video, all about the Suns. Y'all already seen that. But basically, the Suns are very, very, very good, and I don't think Bleacher Report is giving them their flowers with this kind of rating, in my personal opinion. But we will move on from that. I've talked enough about the Suns. New Orleans surrender an unprotected first rounder. Now this one I think is absolutely awful. I would give the Hawks an A+ for this. I don't know why they only have the Hawks being at an A. That was amazing what they did. They absolutely fleeced them. All they had to do was give up Derek Queen, and now they probably have maybe the first round pick next year, and they got the 23rd overall pick from the Pelicans. No, they absolutely fleeced them. That was a highway robbery. They should have a ski mask on. I know they're in Atlanta, so a shiesty wouldn't be too out of character, but in general, they absolutely robbed them in broad daylight. Pelicans got a F-. I completely agree. Laughable, unhinged, malpractice. I can agree with every single one of those phrases. The Pelicans should be investigated. I will say it here first. The Pelicans need to be investigated for that trade. Don't get me wrong. Derek Queen has been great. He's been very good for them. But I don't know if it's worth AJ DeBonsa. I don't know if it's worth Cam Boozer. I don't know if it's worth Tristan Peterson. I need to figure out that man's name because he's going to be amazing. But I don't think it's worth any of those three guys, and that's most likely what they're going to be giving up, seeing how awfully they've been playing and seeing now that Zion is obviously out again with another injury. No disrespect to Zion. I think he's a good player when he plays. He just never does, and I think that's going to be a huge problem for the Pelicans. Has been a huge problem for the Pelicans. And I would honestly hope to see them move on from him eventually. I don't think he provides a whole lot to that team. He provides them probably like 2 or 3 highlight reels every single season. That's about it. In general, I think he could do. I think they could do a lot better, especially if they trade Zion now, before this gets a little too crazy. So it's just my opinion. Next, we got the Nuggets landing Cam Johnson for MPJ. Okay, I want to see a little bit. Oh, I already saw what they give the Nuggets. I don't think you guys can see it, but I saw it, and that's all that matters. But basically, I'm just gonna scroll down. I already saw it, but yeah. Denver Nuggets acquire Cam Johnson. The Brooklyn Nets acquire Michael Porter Jr. in the first-round pick. They gave the Nuggets a C-. I would probably give them a D. I know Cam Johnson will get better at the season, but obviously the idea is for this article to be basing on it right now, and he's been one of the most disappointing players in the league. They say it right here. Johnson's start was among the most disappointing. Yeah, I just think he needs to lock in a little bit more. We all know how good Cam Johnson is, and the fact that they traded a first plus Michael Porter Jr. with the way that he's been playing, I don't think it's a good trade for them. At this current moment, like I said, Cam Johnson will put it all together. He already has begun. But yeah, I just want to see more from him before I can give the Nuggets a C-. The Nets getting a B. Yeah, I would take that. I would maybe even give the Nets an A. You know, they took an asset from the Suns in the Kevin Durant trade initially a couple of years back. Cam Johnson played out of his mind. They were able to get a first. Plus Michael Porter Jr. out of it. And I would not be surprised if we saw them trade in Michael Porter Jr. further down the road for even more firsts. That personally would not surprise me. And I honestly do hope to see them do that. I think that would be very smart for their team. 3-teamer lands Norman Powell in Miami. I think, before I scroll down properly, this was a good trade on paper with the Clippers getting John Collins, and it felt like they really needed that. But now we're seeing, with everything that the Clippers are doing now, by the way, how dare they do Chris Paul like that? I think that's awful for a franchise, and honestly, I would not be surprised if we see big names never being willing to sign to the Clippers again. First of all, they're being investigated for the stuff that happened with Kawhi. Who knows if that's true? I personally don't. Not many people do. But they're being investigated for that, which I think is a really big thing. And I think, yeah, just doing Chris Paul like that, doing someone who's a legend in the franchise, someone who was on the team when they were in their best in the entire franchise's history, and to just trade him away, not even trade him, tell him to go home, start to waive him. And I saw another report. It was purely because of the way that he held the coaches and his fellow players accountable. It made Ty Lue uncomfortable, which I think, based on my personal opinion, based on the way they've been playing, rather than getting rid of the guy that was holding the team accountable, I would rather get rid of that awful coach that has been leading them to be this terrible. That's just me personally, though. I think it's very silly for them to blame some uncomfortability in the locker room fully on Chris Paul, when it should be almost entirely put on Ty Lue. I would personally, if I was a Clipper fan, I'd go to his house, I'd pack his bags for him, send him off. It's ridiculous what they've been doing. Sorry, quick tangent. But yeah, in general, I think this was a really bad trade for the Clippers, them getting rid of Norman Powell, and then they thought that Bradley Beal could replace what Norman Powell could do. On paper, it makes sense, but then when we actually saw Bradley Beal playing, he was not anywhere near as good as what Norman Powell was and has been for the Heat. So I hope to see a very high grade for the Heat, because they got what did they even trade for him? They essentially just traded, here, it says right here, they essentially just traded Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson in the 2027. No, the 2027 second was via the Clippers. So the Clippers traded Norman Powell in a second for John Collins. To me, that's insane. That is genuinely insane. And the Heat got Norman Powell for essentially just Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson. So yeah, I would happily give them an A+. I'd probably, they only give them an A. I'd give them an A+. That's me personally. Clippers got a D. I'd give them an F. No, maybe not an F, because John Collins has been a slight light spot on that team, but everything else has not been going good for them. The Jazz getting a C. I can see that. I can definitely see the Jazz getting a C. I would say it's pretty mid-level as far as any other trade that they've done, so I don't mind it. But I think that's the end of the article. So yeah. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, I'm going to be uploading every single day in December, so please like, subscribe if you're enjoying it. Comment down below if you disagreed with anything that I've said, or if you agreed. If you wanna glaze a little bit, I'll happily accept that. But yeah, thank you all, and I will see you tomorrow. Maybe that sounded a bit creepy, but yeah, I'll post again tomorrow. Bye.